After Talk Radio, you're in to all things music.
The hard work and learning, putting in your 10,000 hours on your instruments is one thing, but how about adding another 10,000 hours on learning how you're going to further your career, whether it is knowing the industry you're getting into, knowing how to sell your music, and also knowing how to detach yourself from the art and being able to see it as a product.
This is Going to Get Loud, the working musician's ultimate guide to striking a new path through today's music industry. With your host, Paul Nicholas.
Welcome, everybody, on this awesome Tuesday. It's going to get loud. I am Paul Nicholas. We are here with Josquin Desprez. Hopefully I got that right. Producer and bassist extraordinaire. We're going to be talking a little bit today about licensing for film and TV, as well as several other topics. He has written a couple of books that I wanted to mention real quickly. Reality Check, Priceless Advice for Musicians, and Creative Careers in Music. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to jump right in and talk a little bit about you for a second. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about your background?
I'm French, as the name says, right? And
of course.
I started in music in the 70s in France, and then as a bass player locally in local French bands. And then I had a break in the mid-'70s, signing with United Artists in France, when United Artists was a label, believe it or not. It used to be a record label. And then I went on and moved to California around 1979 and started doing recording sessions in L.A., and actually, I used to trade sessions and gigs with Nathan East, who became one of the greats of all times. And I replaced him in a band down in San Diego, and we used to play different gigs at the Big Potato in Los Angeles. And so that's a little bit the story from France to here.
And so you've been in a lot of different facets of the film and TV industry, the recording industry, and so you spend a lot of time now with your company working on scores for film and TV, as well as just running your own studio, correct?
Right. So there's a long story in between, of course, from showing up in California in 1980 and now. And all this has been based on, trying to make a living. I mean, not trying, making a living in music and survival in the music industry through all its changes. So I became, originally I was a bass player, but then I wanted to be a songwriter and I wanted to be a producer. And it was, you had to do a variety of things to be. I mean, not everybody can be Nathan East, who's been able to more than support himself, but be a great success at, being a bass player. So in order to live the lifestyle I wanted to live, I took on a variety of, jobs and wore different hats and became a producer like around 1988. And started producing sessions, and then I became a songwriter. So,
my goodness!
So
quite a lot of change in that time period,
right? So what happened? I was preparing myself, and I was practicing the same way I prepared myself from age 15 to 19 when I signed a record deal by practicing a lot of bass. I had been practicing my songwriting, and by the time around 1987, I realized that I was a terrible lyricist, and being French didn't help, And I wanted to to connect, and networking really help. So I wanted to connect with, great lyrics, and, somebody who could write great lyrics. And I was fortunate enough to meet Bernie Taupin, who was Elton John's lyricist pretty much his entire career, Elton's entire career. And about 6 months later, we started writing songs together, which was quite amazing, and which led me to have a publishing deal with Warner Brothers. So at that point, I kind of officially called myself a songwriter. So that's how that went.
And so one thing that I really wanted to ask you, because one thing we haven't talked about on this program too much yet is about film and TV licensing. So as you became a songwriter, how did you transition into more of that realm of film and TV? Was it through label contacts that you had spanning back several years? Is it something that you had to go out and research on your own? I know there are a lot of artists that are looking to get into that world, but they may not really know where to start.
Well, it's a little bit of everything, and people, musicians in general, don't want to necessarily do the homework. I get emails all the time, and because I run a publishing company for film and TV, and I have about 8 to 10 songwriters. I mean, programmers and composers, and
sure.
What people don't want to do the work to get there, and they all have a song they want to place, and they don't understand the complexity of the business of placing song, whether it is on a MTV show, on Anderson Cooper on CNN, or the lead song on Grey's Anatomy, for example, which is a show that everybody wants to get on. And people come to me and they have a great song and say, I want to place the song on Grey's Anatomy, and my immediate response is get in line. I like to take on battles that I'm going to win. I don't take on the impossible. When you're trying to get a song on a show, so for example, I have artists that I work with, and they're trying to get the soundtrack for Blade Runner 2 that is coming out. Right. I'm not even going to get close to trying. I had people trying to get me songs for 50 Shades of Grey. That is the kind of movie where the the production house, they're going to take the hottest artist of the moment to have the song. And of course, sure enough, they took Ellie Goulding. I would have said Beyonce, I would have said Rihanna. So there's a lot. So small steps, taking on battles that you can win, So for example, we took on about 8 years ago, we started working for MTV, and we wrote for about 10 of their shows. And from, I'm not going to name the shows. They're all, Teen Mom, Catfish, now the greatest shows, Cribs, Pimp My Ride. We did a lot of those, And but it got us on the map, and we made quite a bit of money on the back end, with these shows. The list is extremely long. I don't know. We have a website, trackstarentertainment.com, where people can see. We write for about 60 different networks. So
can I take a minute? I'm looking at that right now. Can I brag a little bit on you?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so TV networks and television shows, including The Ellen DeGeneres Show, The Bachelor, U.S. Version, American Idol, Tyra Banks Show, George Lopez, Anderson Cooper, American Chopper, Pawn Stars, Deadliest Catch, CNN, NBC, HGTV, TBS, Bravo, Food Network, Animal Planet, Discovery Channel, History, Travel Channel, CBS, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Basically everybody on the planet. So
yeah, and
if...
These are the ones we
can.
These are the ones we can track, on our BMI. Our BMI sheets are over 500 pages thick. If I wanted to hire somebody to count how many shows we're on, we're probably on. I can't keep track. but it gives you an idea. We're on, we figured about 60 major networks, worldwide.
And so let me ask you this. Is most of this work coming from your writers that are writing original songs for this programming, or is it a combination of you guys writing original compositions plus people that are feeding stuff through you? I have a song. Can you help me get it on XYZ? Okay,
so the way we operate is we do everything. I'm not going to say everything. We do 95% to order. The networks will come to us, or the music supervisors, whether they work for a music library company or, a publishing company or a television network, are going to come to us and they're going to tell us, we need 5 tracks like this in this genre. And they give us a pretty, what's called a brief, which is a description of what they're looking for, and it's usually very accurate. And they give us basically 3 days to write it. And that's what people have to understand. The rhythm, the timing is extremely important, because when they contact us, they're pretty much at the last editing stage of the show. And the faster,
they're not going to sit and wait around for you to get around to it.
And keep in mind, they send that same brief to about 10 other people. So you got to move extremely fast. So I usually will dispatch it to my writers, the ones who are the most appropriate, the most experienced with that particular style. And then they know, and usually within 8 to 10 hours, they start sending stuff back. I forward it to the music supervisor. They come back with corrections, and then it's pretty much they take, 3 or 4 out of what we sent back. The leftover, the tracks that have not been accepted, we keep it in another file, and we rework them and send them to, other publishing houses that we do business with. So they go in the casualty file, basically.
Yeah, but you've still got that huge backlog should you need to, pull something out for a similar project, right?
Exactly.
So,
and we correct them and we transform. We can quickly take another. When somebody asks us for something, we go into that backlog, and we, look at what we have that can be closed, that has not been placed. All these deals we do are exclusive, of course, so we cannot, place twice the same piece of music. We stopped doing this years ago. So everything is custom. This is the point I'm trying to make.
Right.
It's very hard. I use the analogy of, and this is not. I don't want to make music sound like it has no importance, but you walk in a Subway sandwich, and you order your sandwich to order. With all the ingredients you want. You can't walk in the sandwich shop and say, and the guy behind the counter goes, "Well, I happen to have this great roast beef sandwich here. Do you want it?" Everything they want is to order for their specific scene, in their show. So they're usually pieces of music that people will bring to us that are extremely well performed, very competent, very well written, and music supervisors are going to pass on them. Not because they're not good, because they just do not have any use for them.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And now, ask you a question. When they come to you with these briefs, imagine there's a whole range of things they could possibly be looking for. What would be the range of something they could be looking for? Would like a 3-second intro be a 5-minute swing orchestral arrangement, or the big scene, love scene in the movie? What's kind of the range of what they're looking for? I know all over the place, but with some examples.
Hey, Paul. We're losing a little bit of your signal, sir. So just to let you know, if you might want to repeat that question again. You were breaking up.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, let me repeat that. So. When they come to you and are asking for original composition, what are some different things they could be looking for? Will be, say, 30-second or 60-second intro Would it be
Hey, Paul.
sweeping
Sorry,
orchestral arrangement?
you're breaking up a little too much. Can you go ahead and just refresh your page, see if that fixes the connection?
And I'll carry the show from here. So, So everyone, Paul has the enviable spot of having a gig right now over in the Bahamas or Caribbean. One of those. So the internet isn't always stellar. We're here in Josquin is here in the studio with us, but I think he was asking you about it was breaking up, but I think he was asking you about the placement of the songs. I could be wrong.
Well, the length of the intro verses, it had something to do with that.
Yeah. So it almost sounded like a new language we had to start to learn how.
Yeah, I know. I was going,
A new version. It's like the south of France, something like that.
Paul has been replaced by a cyborg. I think that's what happened.
But folks, that is the day and age of remoting in for show hosts. But that gives a chance to have some of these amazing show hosts as they are. And then, of course, it's nice to have Josquin always in studio here.
hey,
So
San Diego is just like the Bahamas as far as I'm concerned. But maybe I haven't been
I
there.
always call it Hawaii light.
Yeah.
Because everyone's good temperament here in Hawaii. Same thing. They're all good temperament, but. It's kind of interesting how that works out. But he's getting paid to play down there right now. So
wow.
So he's
nice.
He's not doing too bad. And
I'm back talking.
we're still chopping you up here, Paul. I don't know if the signal's strong or not, or if it's being borrowed. How you doing over there?
Good. Me there.
You were really strong there for a second. Well, until we can get Paul, I'm going to have you, Paul B, our head of operations here, is going to try to get him back dialed in.
Yeah, we're going into a commercial here in just a minute. Paul, try and reconnect again. You kind of came in with a strong signal and then it dropped out. So try to just restart again.
Sorry about that, guys. Here we go.
No worries, man. So, Mr. Josquin, you've got so many different things going on here. What's the one thing that's kind of takes up most of your focus and time because it's just the most profound right now?
Well, film, television placement. We turned it into, our main focus.
Well, you're a behemoth, though, and like I said, you're battling some of these long-standing publishing companies because you bring in all the great, the great talents. Now, it's not just you, obviously, writing. It's a collection of different people.
Yeah, there's about 8 of us.
Yeah.
And, nation and worldwide, we have people in France, London, new guy in Munich.
Now, how'd you feel? Oh, well, there is the music there. So, Saved by the Bell. We'll be right back, folks. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but that's how it goes sometimes when you are live. Stay tuned for Going to Get Loud. My name is Florentino. I'm jumping in right now for the incredible Paul Nicholas. He'll be right back soon. You always can't help the internet.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
This is Going to Get Loud, the working musician's ultimate guide to striking a new path through today's music industry. With your host, Paul Nicholas.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We've got Mr. Dupre here. Sorry, I just got dumped out of my own show in the last segment, but thank you, Florentino, for picking that up there. We were talking about music, film, and TV licensing, and I was just in the middle of a question there. And I would like to pick right up there. And the question was, when these folks come to you with these briefs and they're requesting specific original compositions for film, TV, whatever it is, what are some of the ranges of things that they're looking for? Is it 30 to 60-second intros? Is it 5 minutes of sweeping orchestral arrangements as the big love scene comes in for the movie? What are some of the different interesting things that you've been asked to do over the years?
So there's a formula. It's usually the main piece is about 2.5 minutes long. Then once they approve the initial piece, we bounce what is called stems. Stems include 30 seconds and 60 seconds that they use for intros, commercials, or whatever they choose to do, previews, trailers, or whatever is necessary.
Oh, so it's kind of like the audio trailer.
Exactly. Then they do underscores, which is the background without the melody, so they can have somebody talk over that. And then they do the ending, where we just create the ending. How do they call it? The stinger, it's called in the business. And I want to touch on that also in a minute. Basically, we give them all these different versions so that the film editor or the music editor in the cutting room, although nowadays it's called the editing room, I guess. Back then they used to cut it, literally. And so in the cutting room, they can basically they have all the versions they need to be able to insert the music. So
sure.
So there's all these different versions. And, the terminology, one thing that I want to talk about is terminology. When you're going to get in this field, and any kind of field in music, what I found extremely important is knowing the right terminology. If you're going to get in the film TV business, is knowing all the different terms. And I find so many times people who come to us and want to be writers and composers, they have no idea of the terminology that is used in the field that we're in. And for example, they don't know what a stem is. They don't know what a stinger is. They don't know what an underscore is. And it's extremely, and this moves so fast, we don't have time to educate them. And,
sure.
And I tell them, first, all this information is available online on Wikipedia. You can Google it. And nobody wants to make the effort. We teach classes to people how to do it. But it seems to me that I don't play football. But if I was going to play football, I would know what a quarterback does, So,
and that's actually something that's very, very common across the music industry, as you've seen in your extremely long career, whether you're an aspiring, instrumentalist, composer, lyricist, etc. There's a lot of laziness out there no matter what.
It's a combination, don't you feel it's a combination of laziness and, I I don't know if it's only laziness. There's more to it. I wrote a book called Reality Check, Priceless Advice for Musicians. And I wrote several books, and people bought them, but Reality Check, nobody bought it. And one day, I saw a review, I think it was on Amazon or something like that. And it said, boy, does my husband need this. And this is when I realized I would never sell any. Because if you're smart enough to buy it, you probably don't need it.
Right. Now, yeah, I totally agree, and there's a lot of that in the industry. And I mean, I also feel, maybe this is just my personal opinion, but I also feel like there's a lot of entitlement going around. People think that just because they can write a song and they're somewhat competent, that they deserve the big deal. They deserve the placement. They deserve the gig. And I don't think that there's a sense that, just being competent, for me, that's a given, and that's the basis of it. But that's not going to get you anything. It's the hard work that's going to get you something. Just being talented is a given.
Yeah,
if you don't even
you're
have that,
right
then
about
you're
that.
really screwed.
See, I didn't even think of that, but you're absolutely right. There's an entitlement. People, I'm good, so therefore, and what they don't realize, people wonder why, let's mention names. People wonder why is Britney Spears so big? Then they go, well, she's not that good. Well, she works very hard at being who she is,
Oh, yeah.
And they don't see that. And we can sit here and name musicians dating back to the 70s who have been the same, So the hard work and learning, putting in your 10,000 hours on your instruments is one thing, but how about adding another 10,000 hours on learning how you're going to further your career, whether it is knowing the industry you're getting into, knowing how to sell your music, because, it's a business. And, and also knowing how to detach yourself from the art and being able to see it as a product.
Well, and therein lies the biggest problem, doing what we do. So I own a software company called Showslinger, and we develop software that helps musicians get gigs. But streamlining the process, eliminating all the pain points, all these things is essential and crucial to helping musicians these days. But I don't care how slick the tool is, you're still going to have to do something. And just, again, being competent isn't enough. That's square one. It's like saying, I'm a brilliant person. I have, a genius level IQ. Well, that's great. But if you don't do the work in to meet the right people, to put together the right resume, to put together a portfolio, to hone your skills for a specific position, it doesn't matter how smart or talented you are. You will not achieve anything. Yeah,
the networking part and hanging out in the right places, being likable, that people want to do business with you. That's an extremely important part. People come to me, I live in San Diego, and I have a tendency, I would consider San Diego a small town, or at least a small town mentality. And a lot of people come up to me and they go, well, you have connections. You have connections in LA. Well, I came from the south of France, from a village where there was about 50 people. I created these connections. I went up and down Sunset Boulevard in 1979 with my cowboy boots, and everybody slammed all their doors on me, So you can make these connections. You have to work at them. It takes a lot of work. And I'm going to tell you, I know myself. I know my strengths and my weaknesses, and I know what they are. But I also spent a lot of time, basically selling my skills, regardless how limited they are. And I know what they are. I know my limitations, So people need to know their strengths, weaknesses, and really work on their strength and sell that first,
And that's actually interesting that you brought that up, because we talked about that a couple of shows back, specifically knowing your strengths and weaknesses. The typical musician at the lower level, emerging artists and these kinds of things, tend to not be as self-aware, and they tend to overstate their strengths and understate their weaknesses. And you find the most successful CEOs, entrepreneurs, politicians, it doesn't matter. The most successful people they tend to be the most self-aware. They are acutely aware of where they suck and where they're great, and they're able to compensate for those things. So would you recommend everybody to take a good, hard look in the mirror and have that honest conversation with themselves?
Yeah, I have a book called Reality Check.
There you go. Okay, so you endorsed the book and the practice.
Yeah, and I wrote the book kind of after my own personal experiences. And I mean, you can't be good at everything. And there's a lot of these artists who are, I started as a bass player. I got people talk about me. I'm a known bass player, but I know the reality. There's a lot of killer bass players out there, and part of the reason why I became a producer and a songwriter is because the competition in bass players, the competition was fierce, and if I wanted to be employed, I had to find other avenues. I'm a very good producer, I know that, but same thing. There's a lot of killer producers. I'm a good songwriter. I'm an awful lyricist, I know that, but I teamed up with one of the greatest. So it's knowing where you fit and how to make it work, and being able to present it, and to basically sell yourself, sell your skills without bragging about them, and that people appreciate what you have, and hopefully they're gonna like it.
Yeah, and that's another recurring theme on the show is don't be a name dropper. That's kind of a huge no-no, and you see a lot of people trying to do that. How would you recommend? Say you're an emerging artist. You've got several records. You've done some tours. You're getting some traction in your local markets, and you think it's time for you to start pursuing some of these licensing or publishing opportunities. How do you think folks can start to educate themselves at the lower levels? Are there particular? You've written some books. They can certainly check those out. What other kind of resources, other than Google and whatnot, are there specific resources you would recommend for these guys?
Okay, there are better books than mine on film and TV placement. I think I don't know the titles right off the top of my head, but there are books that are very much, directed at that. So just Google, film, TV placement books. But ultimately, I think basically there's small publishing companies. I can name a few. There is one called Lyric House. They take unsolicited material. There is one called Atrium Music, and that's a start. There's one called Teletunes, and they play some material, and also understanding the point system, so that when they put a contract in front of you, you don't freak out like, oh my God, they want half of my song. Well, you need to understand what half is, and you need to understand what it represents and who wants to get paid what and all these different things. People don't want to, for us, a piece of music is only a piece of music. We go back to the studio, we write another one. For a lot of musicians, it's their little baby, so it's all how you view it.
Interesting. And so here's a question I have for you about, you mentioned a couple of houses there. How do you go about even presenting your unsolicited material? What are some do's and don'ts for emerging artists? Because that's something that I get asked a lot, but certainly I'm not as familiar with the subject matter as you are. Well,
I got in, early in the game, so of course it's easier for me, now if I want to approach a new company. Because I can say who we are and that we have songs on, 60 networks, so of course they're going to pay attention. I would say, just approach them. I'm a songwriter, composer, and I have some tracks that I feel you would find interesting. Would you be interested in checking out this link? I wouldn't even send the link first. Have a SoundCloud link. And I would not send MP3s. People won't open them most of the time. Just send them a solicitation letter, email. And,
get them a little interested there.
Yeah, exactly. Buy a directory of who are the music supervisors. You can get one I don't know exactly the name of it, but you can Google a directory of music supervisors. They're constantly changing. These jobs, people keep them for 2 or 3 years and move on. So, but having the up to date list, you can contact the music supervisor for a show on ABC. I don't know how much he's going to check his email, and I'll give a little tip here also. Music supervisor is the top guy on the show. The music editor is the guy who's actually putting together what we call in the business the Frankenstein track. Let's say they have a show, and they're going to put in some dummy music, and out of that dummy music, there could be a fake track, some track that you sent. And the guy's going to put it in there temporarily just to see how it works, and send it to the music supervisor who's going to listen. And then they're going to decide on the final music they have. And I'm saying this story because it's happened to me. And then the music supervisor listens, and then they put the final music in there, and then he's removed the Frankenstein track. And then the music supervisor got so used to hearing it with that Frankenstein track that he kind of requests, can you put back that particular track and this and one? Well, it so happened there was a couple of shows that I had some of my tracks in there, and it got me in the door on a bunch of shows to follow, because the music supervisor heard that demo track that I sent and requested more tracks from us after.
And so at that point, does the music supervisor go, hey, that's great, I want that track back in there. Oh, crap, we don't have the rights to that. Can you go rush and go get it from this guy?
Exactly. And then who are these guys? Can we have more? And it opened a lot of doors. We ended up doing stuff for Ellen DeGeneres, Tyra Banks, through that same connection.
And so was that something where you just simply contacted basically the editor directly, kind of, going in the back door that way? Or
literally,
did it just so happen it worked out that way?
It was literally out of a directory.
Hey, you know what? Try all avenues, right?
Exactly.
And,
there was no connection. It was a properly written letter, email, subject line. Subject line was... I can even tell you it was composer with TV credits would like to send new material. That's exactly what it said.
And for the emerging artists listening out there, do not interpret that to send them an email saying, "Hey man, check this out." That's not going to work. Make sure you use proper grammar and
language.
And polite.
I always tell people, first the people in this field. They're graduates from NYU and these kind of universities. They learn how to speak properly, so kind of ease up on the yo, what's up, and,
Make sure you communicate on their level. Good working advice from Mr. Dupre. We are going to be right back. It's going to get loud here on Tuesday. I am Paul Nicholas. We'll see you in a minute.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on InterTalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on InterTalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is Going to Get Loud, the working musician's ultimate guide to striking a new path through today's music industry. With your host, Paul Nicholas.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're talking with Josquin Desprez, and we were just talking about, over the break, the Recording Institute. Can you go ahead and finish that thought for me?
Yeah, we have a music production and recording school that we run out of Trackstar Studios, which is our location in San Diego. And as you, I think we mentioned, we have several writers all around the world for Trackstar that write music for television. And the Recording Institute is only in San Diego, and basically we take on students who want to learn production. And I know there are a lot of schools, but they don't teach basically how to not only produce music for film and TV and artists, but basically the real deal, which is, the people who graduate from our school, know how to basically produce music for film and television. And 4 of our current writers that we have at Trackstar are graduates of our program, and they're extremely prolific, and their music has been on major TV shows.
Interesting. And so tell me a little bit about the requirements there. I mean, do you have to be a seasoned industry veteran? Is this for folks that are, just out of college and trying to get into the career in the music biz? What's kind of prerequisites there?
Well, we first, we don't take anybody because we don't have the room. It's a small studio. So the requirements are you have to be some kind of a musician. There's a lot of people who do turntable work, and they like to call that being a producer. We don't consider that being a producer. You have to be able to play either keyboards, guitar, and being able to create music from an instrument. We teach you Pro Tools, but if you already have some form of skills, in software, you're going to do much better. So basically, we kind of interview you for about an hour before we even take you on. And basically we teach you the music industry so that when we are talking about publishing, when we're talking about points, when we're talking about contracts, you know what we're talking about. When we're talking about the general language, stems, when we're talking about underscores, when we're talking about half of the publishing, when we're talking about BMI, are you registered with ASCAP? They know. There is so much to learn, I have so many times people walk in my studio and they're asking me if I'm a promoter, and they don't know the difference between that and a record producer.
Yikes. If you're asking that question, you're not sure of the answer. It might be time for a different career.
Yeah, but you'd be amazed. Well, you're a live player. You know what a promoter is, right?
Indeed.
Yeah. But you would be surprised. I mean, people jump in this business, they have no idea. And you only find that for some reason, I think, you only find that in music. I don't think you find that in football, right?
Being somebody who doesn't know anything about sports, I couldn't tell you. But yes, I do agree that in the music industry, you get a lot of different types of folks that just, you can find people that say, hey, I like listening to music. I'm gonna get a career in the music industry.
Right, exactly. Well,
it's a funky industry for sure.
I've interviewed people who, who show up at my studio. They want to take our program because they were at a party on Saturday. They started rapping, and everybody told them they should be a producer. So they ring the doorbell.
Oh, my goodness.
That's why we have a big sign on the door that says, "Do not ring the doorbell."
See who follows directions. I like that.
Actually, rarely. The sign is pretty scary. It's all in red, and it says "Do not" in big. And it says "Email us," and then we don't answer the email, and we never answer the phone. But
it could just be somebody's persisting, because I was in sales for a long, long time, and every company had a no soliciting sign, and I can't tell you if I've ever seen one of those. They said it was there. I just know that I never saw it.
Exactly.
If I did, I would never make a sale. So maybe they're persistent. Maybe they can't follow directions. But for the folks that are listening in, that is therecordinginstitute.com. therecordinginstitute.com. And so tell me about kind of the skills these guys are going to master when they get out of there.
Well, they're going to master, a combination of production and recording. They're going to understand MIDI, how to create music, how to not use pre-existing loops. You cannot create a composition for a film TV library using pre-existing loops. That would be like collage, You can't create an original Picasso by grabbing a piece of newspaper and pasting it together, or a photograph that is already copywritten and, and pasting it and call it your own art.
Even if they say the loops are royalty free.
Well, that's complicated to discuss. I mean, these come with license agreements. The problem is when you can't take a royalty-free loop with a license agreement. It clearly states on that license agreement that they cannot be resold as loops, as a part of music library. So let's say if I take a loop of a drum from a music library and I make it part of a tune, and then I take this tune and I sell it to Warner Brothers to put in their library, I'm reselling that loop, so it goes against their license agreement. And so when we have, when we need to create basically a loop for a Warner Brothers library, for example, even though it goes in a TV show, they keep it in their library and they pay us for it. So it falls under that agreement. We start with a drummer. People don't understand that. When we, so we create, you have to be able to perform everything, which means that we have to have composers who are real musicians, not people who assemble. That's what I call creating music with Legos. It's a big difference.
No, I completely understand that. And here's a question that I have, is when you sell an original composition, what kind of due diligence does the end user basically do on that? Does their legal department go through and make sure every single bit of every single composition is allowed to be purchased by them in the first place? Or do they just hand you the contract so that you have to certify that it's all good? And if it's not, then you could really be up a creek.
Well, first, we want to keep working with these people. So when we tell them, all my writers know, my rules. So I trust them, number one, to do the right thing. When it goes to Universal, Warner Brothers, not only they trust me, but above and beyond all of this, there's a software out there called TuneSat, and the software will detect any encoded loop that is encoded with, basically, if it's a loop that is encoded with license agreement to not be resold, it can be detected, and then you're in trouble. So if you type TuneSat, TUNESAT, you can do some research. So you can get busted. It's happened. It's happened to us before, and we got a warning. And then it's happened before that we found people using some of our stuff, and we had to send them a letter. We had an issue actually with MTV that was resolved because one of our writers had used one of the loops he gave me for MTV, and he had used it somewhere else in some Eastern European country. So, with MTV it was very easy because they were easygoing and all that. But, I keep sending, and I send reminders, regularly every 6 months on the rules,
Yeah, interesting. So it's kind of like it's kind of like trying to get by with a forged painting at an auction or something. It's going to get detected, and then you're in trouble.
Exactly, and if you want to stay in the painting, in the sales, auction business, and it's hiring the right kind of guys, people who can actually perform.
And so, talk a little bit more about that, because one of the things that you see from a lot of kids coming out of music schools and the younger generation that is relying heavily on electronics to do a lot of things for them. You were saying that you use a lot more actual musicians, instrumentalists, as opposed to relying on all the digital buffoonery to write all of your tracks. Say, in all of your original compositions, how much is actually performed by actual players as opposed to something that's created more or less electronically, something via keyboard or whatever programs you guys are using?
Well, everything is performed. Now, I'm not going to claim that everybody we have in the in our organization is Franz Liszt on the piano, or Mozart, or Chick Corea, or Eddie Van Halen.
Sure.
We perform. I mean, you got to remember, we have Pro Tools. We'll loop a little section with 4 chords, and then we play it. Then we move to the next section. And usually we like it that way because we can really analyze everything we're doing. And everything has to be to the millisecond because it has to lock in with frames, in television and all that. So it has to be very accurate. So it's all performed, whether the guy is playing it on a mini keyboard in a style of what I call texting, on the keyboard, playing with 2 fingers,
right.
That, people ask me, do you play keyboards? And I tell them, no, I'm texting on the keyboard.
That's pretty funny. I got to remember that when I'm working on my own tracks, because I'm a piano player, but every once in a while I'm texting.
So we're performing. We're actually playing the parts and coming up with them. We're not assembling pieces of loops, which a lot of people are doing. And so we have to stay away from that. Everything we do is completely created from scratch.
Interesting. Yeah, that's pretty much what I like the most, because you do see a lot of people basically creating Franken pieces from the bits of loops they have there. Now, you were mentioning that you have about 3 days to put all of this together. Now, are you typically working 8, 12, 16-hour days? Because I'm thinking that the amount of hours, you guys have to be extremely efficient there.
Well, I have in my whole team, I have about 4 guys who are really ahead of the pack, and they're workhorses. They're extremely fast. They get it, and usually they'll do a piece in 5 hours, and they'll send it to me. I forward it to the music soup, and then it comes back, and they go, okay, correct this and that. So they do it in record time. And sometimes I'll send the MIDI. I prepare the MIDI for the chords, for the progressions, and I send that MIDI out sometimes to 2 or 3 different writers. And they are using the same MIDI, but the way they interpret it is completely different. So they come back as 3 complete different songs.
Yeah, that's actually kind of interesting, because if you're thinking that, say, a brief gets sent to 10 different writing teams who are essentially subbing that out to 2, 3, 4, 5 different people, you could have 20, 30, 40, 50 different variations of that coming back.
Exactly.
Okay,
because there's only 12 notes in a scale. You can only do so much. So if I prep MIDI and I put 3 different tempos, and then I do a little variation, and then I send it out. It takes me an hour to prepare that. And then I send it to 3 different writers. I send them the brief. I modify the brief slightly, and I give ideas to the 3 writers. And then it comes back. I send back the corrections. I mean, it goes pretty fast. Now, the way they do it on their end, I think it takes them about 4 or 5 hours.
I gotcha. And so we've got about 2.5 minutes here left in the show, but I want to get to the last bit real quickly of what's on every emerging artist's mind, which is what's the payday? Say, they come to you and say, we need, 3 minutes for XYZ popular TV show. What range are you guys looking at in terms of the payoff for this kind of work?
Well, there's two aspects. There is the front end and the back end. The front end can be like, 50 to 75 an hour. The back end is when you're getting on a major show. I mean, can be, especially if it's used as a theme, can be pretty substantial. So
in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands?
No. We're talking, when you're starting, you're talking 2,500 to 3,000. But the idea is to do a lot. So, people, of course, I have 8 writers, and people come to my house and they see the way I live and they go, wow, so can I do this in film, TV? And I go, yeah, but I've been doing it 25 years and I have 16,000 tracks, so makes a huge difference.
Yeah, just a little bit out there.
So it's people come and you see the persistence and longevity are key. You can't say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to start writing film and TV music and I'm going to be rich. It doesn't work like this. I've been doing it since the early 90s.
No, I mean, that's the same thing, for everybody who's in a band who's trying to get out there. You're not going to write that one song and all of a sudden you're living in the Malibu mansion married to the supermodel. And that's one of the overarching themes of this show that we want to get out to people, is that you can definitely make a living in the music industry doing what you love. But, yeah, it is actually going to be work. It's not just going to be sitting around, partying in the Hollywood Hills there. I do want to thank you so much for being on the show. Josquin Desprez, a very, very deep well of knowledge. 2 books, Reality Check, Priceless Advice for Musicians, and Creative Careers in Music. I highly recommend you guys check them out, purchase them. And if you're interested, therecordinginstitute.com. So you can really learn how to make it in a film and TV licensing is. I'm Paul Nicholas. It's Gonna Get Loud, 4 to 5 p.m. Tuesday, Eastern Time. We will see you next week.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.